On the Autocar show today, we pit the Tata Hexa against the Mahindra XUV500, a first ride of the new Bajaj Dominar 400, and Autocar Confidential.
We were impressed with the Tata Hexa when we drove it a couple of months ago, but since it's set for launch next week, we thought we'd pit it against its rival, the Mahindra XUV. Now you might wonder why, because these are quite different. One clearly aims to be an SUV, the other one styled more like an MPV. But in the marketplace, they will rival each other on price. So let's see how they match up. Viewed head-on, they both have strong, beefy grills, heavy chins and skid plates to stake claim to the SUV space. The Hexa has great symmetry with the bullhorn chrome garnish around the grille and the reverse adorning the air dam. The XUV, however, has lots of cuts and curves and lines across its nose. Around the side, they take on completely different characters. Whilst the XUV maintains the upright, tall stance, the Hexa looks more stretched out and MPV-like. They both have interesting details to stylize the side profile. Whilst the XUV has a kink on the window line above the rear wheel arch to shadow it, the Hexa's roofline kinks downward near the D-pillar, and a chrome plate bearing the Hexa's logo adorns the rear window. At the rear, the Hexa has a flat, clean tailgate with a large chrome strip across. The XUV has a bulging tailgate with detailed headlamps and a lot of cuts and curves again. Despite the difference in styling, it's the top-end Hexa on its 19-inch wheels that stands a little higher off the ground. Now, if it were pure styling alone without considering a segment, I would pick the Hexa. And it's the same feeling on the inside. The Hexa's interior just feels light years ahead of the Mahindra XUV. Everything from, the leather across the dash or on the seats, the stitched leather, the knobs with the chrome tinges, the lot of detailing that's on the inside makes everything feel so rich, so premium, and it just makes you feel like you're in a car that's many levels above. But we must mention that since the Hexa stands high off the ground, you have to climb up into the cabin. The seats are large and comfortable, and it's a simply styled dash, neatly split between aircon vents, infotainment system and climate control. Chrome and glossy black plastic adorn each part. The 5-inch touchscreen looks a little small in such a wide car, and there is a shortage of storage areas, especially in the front for the driver. Functionality-wise, Tata has packed the system with features including downloadable mobile apps for offline navigation, jukebox, remote control for the audio system, vehicle service and the owner's manual. As we learned, the apps are quite heavy in terms of battery usage, so perhaps Tata could have been more generous with the USB ports. There are only 2. But you do get 3 12-volt sockets, including one in the boot. There's also a 10-speaker JBL system that delivers immense power and clarity for all 3 rows of seats. There's 8-color configurable ambient lighting too, cruise control, auto headlamps and wipers, and a reverse camera with dynamic guidelines are also standard. However, a sunroof, push-button start and electric driver's seat adjust are features that are missing on the Hexa that the XUV offers additionally. While the XUV does pack in extra features, it completely lacks the premium feel that the Hexa offers. The dash is nowhere as well designed, and even the plastics land up looking much cheaper. However, the black and beige interiors are a nice combination, and the lighter interior makes the XUV feel more spacious on the whole. We also like the larger touchscreen that's there for the infotainment system, and the practicality of the cabin with its ample storage spaces. Now, when it comes to engine specs, the Mahindra's 2.2-litre M-Hawk engine with 140 HP and 330 Nm of torque looks like the underdog. It's the Hexa that has the new Varicore 2.2 with a healthy 156 HP and 400 Nm. Let's talk about the Hexa first. Well, as soon as you start off in the Hexa, you realize this is not an easy car to park or U-turn in. The steering is heavy. The Hexa feels large and wieldy, and should you need to make a 3-point turn, consider your upper arm workout for the day done. The Hexa is a bit cumbersome to drive in traffic, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that the steering is heavy, and after a whole day of driving, you'll definitely feel it. The clutch has a very long travel as well. And then there's the fact that when you're at crawling speeds, the power delivery isn't too smooth. It's a bit jerky and hesitant. But once you pick up the pace, the Hexa really comes into its own, and out on the highway, it's a comfortable cruiser as well. However, if you switch the mode selector to dynamic, the Hexa's initial response does get better, and the jerkiness at crawling speed disappears. In fact, the Hexa has the better in-gear figures and actually ambles around quite well. Now the engine has a nice wide torque band, power comes in nice and low, so you can be a lazy driver. You can sort of amble around at higher RPMs in lower gears, stop for a speed breaker, just put your foot down without shifting down, and get a move on again quite easily. Now this is a good thing because you really don't want to use this gearbox too much. You need to have a really heavy hand to use it, especially first through second. You fight for it to get it into reverse gear, and in general it's notchy and rubbery. Now when you need to summon up power in a hurry, you will need to work that gearbox and shift down to get a move on. And when you push that engine hard, you hear it. But it's still more refined than the XUV. Overall, let's just say that the Hexa's engine doesn't like to be pushed. Drive it in a relaxed manner with light throttle inputs and it responds much better. And that leisurely experience is offered up in more ways than one. The whole experience inside the Hexa feels far more refined. You hear the engine less, you hear road noise less, you hear sounds from the outside less. In fact, the cabin is just much better insulated. Whilst the engine may not like to be pushed, the dynamics can handle a lot. Now the Hexa is a tall car, so there is a fair amount of roll when you go around corners, but you never feel unsafe. In fact, you feel surprisingly sure-footed. You can carry a fair amount of speed into the corners, and that steering that actually feels heavy at lower speeds gives you good feedback, feels very connected to the road as you pick up the pace and go around corners. The Hexa feels stable and planted at higher speeds on a highway too, and leaves you feeling surprisingly well in control behind the wheel in any condition. The only thing is on an undulating road, the steering has a lot of kickback. The good chassis and the suspension tell on the ride as well. The ride of the Hexa is a little bit on the firmer side, but still, it's definitely the better of the two at low speeds. It's quite brilliant. It goes over everything with a pliant edge. And even as you pick up the pace, it's sort of the more calmer, flatter, more composed ride. And the overall sense of refinement in the way that the cabin shuts out everything outside and you don't hear much makes the backseat experience feel just that little bit more luxurious. In fact, the Hexa's backseat does pamper you. The Hexa does have its share of features too. I particularly like little things like this sun blind. You generally see this on luxury level cars. It's such a neat idea and so practical too. Well, let's get down to the XUV. Well, getting into the XUV to drive now. And I have powered seats here, which makes it far more easy to adjust to your driving position. Oh, the steering does feel much lighter. And the XUV is the easier one in traffic, especially when you want to nip in and out of traffic gaps. And even the gearbox is not perfect, but it's definitely the lighter of the two and far easier to use. Now, let me just say that the figures on papers lie about the XUV's engine's capabilities. It is quicker to the 100 mark. The XUV's engine feels stronger, it feels punchier, it definitely feels quicker of the two. But it's not only that, it's whether you're ambling around and, have part throttle inputs to get going again, or whether you demand a sudden burst of power, the XUV is always happy to serve it up. But here's the thing, the XUV is considerably lighter at 1785 kilos, whereas the Hexa is a heavy 2280 kg. And that weight makes a large difference in the entire driving experience, be it the way the engine responds or the way it drives. The XUV definitely feels more nimble on its feet. As far as ease of driving goes, it's definitely the XUV that feels better. That is until we begin to talk about its handling. This is where the XUV just doesn't match up. When you do demand a sudden burst of power, as you can see, there's a fair amount of torque steer. And the steering on the whole that feels light and easy in the city doesn't weigh up much as you pick up the pace. So it doesn't inspire much confidence at all. In fact, whether you're driving in a straight line at high speeds or even cornering, it just feels light and inconsistent. And most definitely, it's the Hexa that feels the more sure-footed of the two. But let's get to the back seat and see how that affects the ride. Getting into the XUV is a lot easier. The step-in is much lower, so you can sort of just slide into this back seat. And once you're on the inside, you realize that this back seat feels more spacious of the two. I think it's the flat floorboard that really helps. It opens out a lot of room. Even the central console doesn't really intrude into the back. So third passenger will definitely be more comfortable in the XUV. And it's the width as well. It feels the larger of the two. The sunroof adds to the airy feel, and so do the lighter beige-colored interiors. Now let's get back to how the softer suspension setup affects the ride. Now that's just a good example of showing you how much more movement there really is in this back seat. And it's not only that, a lot more of the road actually filters through to the passenger over here. Like I said, you know, over the smaller undulations, you do get tossed around a little bit more. So the ride quality is not one of the XUV's strengths. In addition, the suspension on the XUV works noisily. So when you consider backseat comfort to include space, refinement and ride, then it's the Hexa that wins. We did also check the third row, and since I'm short, we tried it with Jay Patil, who is about 6 feet tall. Overall, it is the XUV that's easier to get into, with the ability to tumble the middle row. Once inside, there's very little to distinguish between the two. Both have almost equal amounts of space. But it is the Hexa that's more comfortable, with better cushioning on the seats. Right at the back, it's advantage to the Hexa, with more storage when all 3 rows are up in the boot. Both cars have their pluses and minuses, and it's a closely fought battle with each one upstaging the other in certain areas. Now, on pure merit, it's the Mahindra XUV that really wins this battle because it has better performance, the more spacious interior, and offers you the ease of driving. But what it lacks is the finesse that the Tata Hexa gives you, those rich premium interiors that draw you in, the back seat that doesn't lose out on space as much as it gives you back in ride quality, and of course the refinement levels that make you feel that this is far more a luxurious car. What the Tata Hexa does is makes you feel like you've got your money's worth and more.
Coming up ahead on the Autocar show, Bajaj's new power cruiser, the Dominar 400.
Few motorcycles have managed to create such phenomenal levels of hype as this one. When the CS400 was first displayed at the Auto Expo in 2014, it got the attention of motorcyclists everywhere. When we brought you the first look video in December 2016, it was amidst clandestine settings and there was little that we could actually experience about the bike. Now, Bajaj's philosophy behind this bike is it wanted to take the easy-to-ride quality of a cruiser and combine it with the performance and handling of a naked. Well, Bajaj have decided to call this a power cruiser. And now that we've got the Dominar 400 here in the real world, we're as excited as you to see what this motorcycle is all about. It does have a fairly squat stance, but it also manages to blend in quintessential Pulsar styling cues. Dominar 400's headlight setup, while still quite beefy, looks quite proportional when compared to the rest of the bike. Its piercing white beam headlight is LED powered with auto headlamp on technology. The DRLs are visible from a fair distance away even during the daytime, and during the night, illumination levels are exceptional. There's a premium feel to the new Power Cruiser with elegantly raised decals and plenty of smartly machined alloy bits, including the handlebar mount, footrests and its mounts. The Dominar 400 deploys a split speedometer console, which is similar to what we've seen on Ducati's Power Cruiser, the Diavel. While the handle-mounted one is all digital and blue backlit, it has cascading bars to read out the engine speed and fuel level. The tank-mounted bar gets all the warning lights, including one for the side stand. It doesn't, however, get a gear indicator anywhere, which we would have expected from a motorcycle in this segment and day. But the crisp functioning illuminated switchgear, comfy palm grips, Bajaj typical control levers, as well as the set of KTM Duke-inspired mirrors all function well. The twin vertical LED strip taillight lends flair to the Dominar 400's tail. The fuel tank looks well chiseled and mature and sweeps smoothly into the passenger saddle, which is lightly stepped and has adequate padding. Its 13-litre fuel capacity, however, gives it a limited range, and we would have expected something a little bigger to handle touring duties. The motorcycle's steel perimeter frame spars sit exposed on either side and add to the aesthetic of the bike, while there are several nifty little highlights like a belly pan, tank extensions and radiator shrouds. While the seat height may not be as low as your conventional cruisers, at 800 mm it's about as high as your KTM Dukes. And once you get astride, you'll notice that the tank has these well-shaped recesses that your knees fit into just perfectly. The seating position is nice and neutral. In fact, it ranks amongst the best we've experienced on any Bajaj to date. There's a slight lean into the flat handlebars, which is complemented by these well-positioned foot pegs. Although, the foot pegs are a bit wide set thanks to this perimeter frame. The bike's power plant is a single overhead camshaft that is a Bajaj derivative of KTM's 390 Duke and RC-based engine platforms. The Dominar comes with triple spark technology, with its 4 valves nestled inside a compact single cylinder head. The liquid cooling on the engine works really well, and the heat never bothered us during our long test ride. Despite putting the bike through sustained low-speed riding in crowded conditions. However, we did feel some vibrations when riding hard and pushing the bike to higher revs, but it was nothing overly intrusive. The Dominar has a 6-speed transmission with a precise light feel, and it also gets a slipper clutch, which steps in with hard downshifting from high speed, offering maximum engine braking with minimum drama. The gear ratios feel just right and are perfectly matched to the engine's long legs. This allows the bike to rev briskly enough through each ratio into its engine limiter. It chops power at close to 10,000 RPM. Throttle response is sharp and precise as expected from a fuel-injected bike like this one. And when you crack the throttle open, there's a light step at 5,000 RPM in the power band, from where the power flows seamlessly to the red line. This is a motorcycle that is just effortless to ride. It doesn't set out to be overly athletic, but it does provide a really satisfying overall experience. Although it does miss out on the big bike feel and feels like a smaller displacement motorcycle. Front suspension is a set of beefy 43mm telescopic forks, while the rear is armed with Bajaj's trademark Nitrox adjustable monoshock system. The ride quality is quite stiff on the Dominar 400, and this was very apparent on our test bike, even with the rear suspension dialed down to its softest setting. On the flip side, the firm setup is what makes the Dominar feel quite sporty, with excellent high-speed stability. It feels planted through corners, and the bike turns in with a fuss-free, neutral manner. Overall, the weight is extremely well managed, and you can hardly tell that this is a 182 kg motorcycle. It doesn't exactly feel like a cruiser at all when you're on the move, and retains some of the characteristics of the Pulsars. Now you get this nice large 320mm disc at the front and a 230mm one at the rear. And the more expensive variant of the Dominar that we have here also comes with dual channel ABS. Now these brakes offer immense amount of feel and stopping power. The front brake feels more sharp and precise, while the rear one feels more progressive. And it comes short with these MRF Rev C1 tires that offer commendable levels of grip. In fact, while we were brake testing, there was hardly any need for the ABS to kick in at all. Bajaj have taken a good swing at us all with the pricing. The base variant of the Dominar costs 1,36,000 rupees and the ABS variant that we have here costs 1,50,000 rupees ex-showroom Delhi, which gives it immense value for money. The Dominar 400 has what it takes to see market success and really dominate the segment. It has all the performance you could possibly need for Indian roads, and it also has reassuring handling and good comfort.
An improved Mahindra XUV500. That's what we're going to talk about on Autocar Confidential. Welcome. Now the Maruti Ignis that's just been launched is going to be the strongest competitor for the XUV500, and Mahindra knows this only too well and has planned some tweaks and a slight refresh for its model, which was launched just over a year back. There are going to be a host of improvements based on customer feedback. For one, fuel efficiency on the petrol engine, which was a bit of an issue, is going to be improved, and refinement too on the petrol engine, which customers complained about, is also going to be improved by changing the engine mounts. That's really was the source of the extra vibrations coming from that engine. But the biggest change is going to be the 15-inch wheels. Yes, the XUV500 will get much needed larger wheels. The 14-inch wheels which it was launched with are rather puny. The 15-inch wheels will give it more of an SUV look. The improved XUV500 is expected to hit the showrooms in a couple of weeks. That's it from me, but keep watching the Autocar Show.